Let me put my volume up. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Hey guys, peace. Sorry about the beginning of this video. I should have set all that up before I hopped on. But I have been thinking about this topic for a minute, and it's been a little bit more imperative as the days go on. We are in a new year. Happy New Year to everyone who is coming back to my channel and everyone who is new to my channel. My name is Zoha. And the channel is Zoha Means Light because Zoha actually means light. So over here, I like to either share my love of yoga by teaching a class or share my love of healing, practical aspects of yoga, and my thoughts. So today I'm hopping on to share some thoughts because, you know, right now in the United States, we are going through a growing period. We have, not all of us, but some of us have elected a new president, and we are experiencing a lot of growing pains as this administration figures out how it's going to manage itself. And, you know, I have a lot of thoughts about that, but that's not the whole of this conversation. The conversation that I want to have is about resistance. Resistance in the African American or Black community has always been a thing. As a person who is a descendant of enslaved Africans, resistance has been a part of our ethos since the beginning of the first enslaved person that was brought here after 1619, or the first African Americans who were, or the first African Americans or Blacks or Africans in America who were brought here after 1619. All right. And so resistance is not new to Black people. I personally call myself Black, but some people call themselves African American. And so I try to respect the boundaries of all the people who look like me and identify with the collective of ancestral beings who were enslaved on the lands in these United States. So you might hear me go back and forth between those two. All right. So I wanted to talk about today. I'm sorry. I forgot to turn on my do not disturb. Let me do that right now. I know. I know. Oh, man. It's not going to let me turn it on. So hopefully I don't get disturbed again. I wanted to talk about today, real quick, yoga as resistance, right? And I want to look up the Webster's dictionary definition of resistance. And resistance is basically, as I think of it, it's a refusal to go along with the status quo. And I think that's what Webster is going to say, honestly. But it's a refusal to go along with the status quo, right? So there's plenty of ways we can participate in resistance in these times that are somewhat familiar ancestrally, especially to us who are related to former enslaved Africans and have lived through lots of different levels of turmoil here on American soil in our communities, and have survived it, right? Right? We have this resilience where we've been able to come out of these situations, not always whole, but here, right? So I would like to first ask for anyone who is wanting to practice a form of resistance is to just acknowledge the fact that your ancestors, someone in your ancestral line, recently, my mother, for me and my father and all of my uncles and stuff, were actually born into a world where they didn't have these rights that people are losing their mind over right now, possibly being repealed. Okay. I was the first person born in my family with the right to vote. My mother was born before the right to vote for Black people was a thing. And all of her foremothers and forefathers were as well. Okay. So resistance is not something new for us per se. So I like to start there, right? So I'm trying to get this computer. It's moving so slow, and I got this. I got so much stuff on there open, so many windows open on here. I'm sorry. So resistance is basically a refusal to go along with the status quo. So I've identified that, and then yoga. How is yoga a form of resistance? Okay. We live in what is called a capitalist society that is slowly, it is not slowly, it has been an oligarchy since I was a kid. As a kid who grew up in Southeast DC, I didn't know certain things, wealth. I didn't have certain access to wealth in a certain kind of way. So the 1% have always had something to say over people's lives who are poor. I'm going to read the Webster's Dictionary definition of resistance. It says the refusal to accept or comply with something. So basically, what I said, right? The refusal to go along with the status quo. So the status quo in a capitalistic society is your value is based on what you can produce. So production, hey David, production is all about doing, right? So what you can do, okay? And this is how, you know, we've been taught to value ourselves in a sort of a way, and it's really moving resistance in the sense that releasing that ideal that you are a product to be consumed, in the sense that you work for somebody and then you're supposed to work for them. Oh, I thought it was a squirrel. I was like, squirrel? That you're supposed to work for them until you're almost dead. And then, you know, go on and, you know, live the last few years of your life in peace. That puts you as a basically a thing to purchase. You are an item. You are a pawn for the capitalistic system. And we all have to have some sort of gainful employment in some way in order to live in the system, right? It's no way to be in this system and not participate, right? You can lower your participation by not clinging so much to materialism and making sure that you do not have to be maintaining things that are going to eventually keep you being a part of the system, right? So, you know, either, I don't know, you know, how you would do that for yourself. So for me, it is not being on the top of every trend, not being tied to name brand things and having to have those things. Also, not teaching my kids not to value those things as well. Teaching them to value having what you need, right? Having what is necessary, right? And also, like, even if you have access, to be appreciative of that access. And when I say, I mean access, right? Like, not access, but excess. That's the word I'm looking for. If you have excess, to be appreciative of that excess, and to also be aware of the community around you, right? And to build community, because I think that is one of the biggest ways that we are losing out in this whole thing, is that we don't have the communities that we need in place in order to resist fully this whole push that we have going on around us, right? So Now that we have the definition for resistance, which is the refusal to comply with something or the attempt to prevent something by action or argument, right? So how is yoga a form of resistance? Like I said, you are the product in a capitalistic society. You are the thing that is of value. Okay. And how you spend your time, how you spend your money, and how you spend your energy is how you resist. Okay. If you are buying into the capitalist system, buying into the idea that you have to own things, then you are, in a sense, agreeing with that system, right? If you are thinking that your value is based on what you can do and what others can do for you, then you are buying into that system. Okay. How does yoga play into that? All right. I share my yoga videos all the time, right? And I know that a lot of people don't get it, like, but the amount of time that I give to myself every day, whether it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours on my yoga mat, it is priceless. I won't give it up for nothing. No job, no nothing can get in between me and my time that I need for myself on my yoga mat. Thank you, David. On my yoga mat. And that is resistance. Why? Because we commodify our bodies in all different types of ways. Like we have jobs where we have to lift things, or we are as mothers, we commodify our bodies for our families and for our children. As fathers, we commodify, or husbands, we commodify our bodies for our families and do back-breaking labor. And all sorts of things, right? But we don't commodify our bodies or value our bodies for ourselves. And that is the main way how yoga is a form of resistance, because you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You get to enjoy your body. You get to be with your body. You get to know your body. And that's what capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchal systems, that the system we live in wants us not to do. It wants us to be foreign to ourselves. And that's why it wants you to work from, I started working at age 14 to 75, 80 years old. And then when you're here for those last 10 or 20 years of yourself, you don't even know yourself, because you've never had the time to be with yourself, right? You've done all the things that the trappings of life, right? You've lived, you bought a home, you've had a job, you've went on trips, you had the kids, you sent the kids to college, you did all the things, like the checklist things that you have to do to live in this society and to be a so-called productive member of society. However, you don't know who you are. You don't have no intrinsic value on intimacy with yourself. You don't know what intimacy with yourself is. You've commodified that at the job, making overtime. You commodified that spending money on vacations so that you can use your time and your energy, but never giving any to yourself. And I'm not talking about a spa moment. I'm not talking about the frills of life, right? Those things are important, right? You should have nice things. You should have downtime and relaxation, and yoga. Yoga teaches you how to know yourself deeply, how to know yourself in ways that no one will ever know you. And that I can't even describe, like, even in an intimate relationship with my husband, I can't even describe the things that I'm learning about myself when I'm on the mat, and I could never even share those things with him because they're so deeply entwined in me. I would literally have to be kind of auctioning myself off in a certain sort of a way, or trying to convince him or anyone about these things about myself that I know about myself, that they're valuable, because what I find valuable, you might not find valuable, right? about me. You know what I'm saying? And what you find valuable about you, I might not find valuable. And that's the point of this. The point of this is that you don't have to, and nor do I. The point is that you are so fully invested in you that you are not concerned with what anyone else thinks or what the value that is assigned to that knowingness or that intimacy, because it's priceless. It cannot be valued. Like it cannot be, a price cannot be set to it, because it's something that nobody could ever understand or even get. Um, and when I first started on my yoga journey, it's almost 11 years now. When I first started, I did not start with this intention. I did not start with the intention of finding a way to move through these systems that we have to live in and without being harmed. Right? You know, there's all kinds of news coming at us all day, every day, right? We're hearing all types of weird things, right? And because I have yoga, I know myself, right? And so I don't let those outside things get in between me and myself and control how I move in the world, control how I think, control how I respond, control how I feel. Because I know how I feel. I know what I think. I know what I am, right? And I think that it's not just yoga, right? I think it's a lot of different movement practices, but definitely movement practices that have you do meditation or sit deeply with yourself, you know, that have you be introspective, like yoga or Tai Chi or something like that, that has you really, you know, investigate yourself, that allows you to create spaces or create a space that's vast enough to encompass the resilience that's needed in a experience such as the one that we're living in, you know, where things are constantly changing, constantly moving, and people are living at the top of panic mode right now. And it's not wrong, right? It's not wrong that they're there. That's a part of this experience, right? And also that is some of what the powers that be want to register for people. But when you have something that allows you to connect deeply to yourself, you can resist those things. You can not participate in those things. And that means that these powers don't have control over you. They don't have dominion in your domain, right? They don't have dominion in your space. They have no say so, because there's no way that they could get in. So I hope this lands and I hope this makes sense for anyone who is or has been to my page and has wanted to practice the yoga practices that I put up, or the breathing practices that I put up, or listen to any of the conversations. This is an opportunity for you to push past all the noise that is here, because there's a lot, and to connect with yourself in such a way that there's absolute clarity for how you move forward, for how you continue to show up in the world. All right. So the first thing I would say is identify why a resistance practice would be good for you, or what you would get out of resistance in this time, specifically, right? Especially as we're having all these governmental changes, and we're having all this fear and rage bait happening, because there will be more, right? We're only at the beginning of, we 8, 9 days into this presidency, and people are starting to have meltdowns, right? I saw someone actually say, and I couldn't believe this. I was like, oh my God, Harriet Tubman would be ashamed. They said, oh, I feel so lost and I don't know what to do. And I was just thinking, honey, are you, and I was like, is this a black person saying this? Like, Yeah, it you can feel that. And dig in, dig in, dig in. You have the experience in your DNA of this type of uprooting, this type of dysfunction happening around you, and you still having to figure out how to make sure that you are here, right? And also leaning on those practices that our ancestors had, leaning on some of those practices of that they had that helped them survive, right? What would that look like for you? What would that look like? What did that look like in your family? Like, have those conversations with your elders if you have elders available. Have those conversations with the people around you who may have stories. Because those are the conversations that we need to be having. Like, what does resistance look like for my bloodline? What does resistance look like, right? I could say that for me, resistance looked like, especially for the women of my family, of not following the status quo. And as a kid, I used to be really frustrated with that. Like, I used to be like, why can't my mom and my grandma be like all like other women, right? Like, why are they so feisty and ready to do everything themselves and don't want help from nobody? And I used to think, when I was a kid, I used to think, oh, I'm going to have a husband and I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that and da 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 da. And no, you're going to be who you are birthed from. I am them. I am strong. I am very clear. I'm very direct. And when I was trying to hide or not be those things, live in opposition to those ways of being, I was creating harmful situations for myself because it was counterproductive to who I actually am, right? So I hope this helps, especially in the experience that we're having now, which is just an experience. It's just an experience, right? It feels very real, very palpable, right? But it's just an experience. And you've had many other experiences. You've had experiences of lots of things on the ranges of what you would assume as good or as bad, right? Or perceive as good or as bad. And you're here. And you've had all those other experiences. And that is also something you get to draw from for your resistance. Okay? So whether you lean on the side of resistance in yoga and finding a way to learn how to practice yoga, learn how to meditate, learn how to do breathing practices, whatever it is that appeals to you, take it on fully and explore it, because there'll be something there for you to grow yourself, to grow who you are in the world, and to expand who you are and who you get to be in this new world. Because the old world is dying. What we know is no more. We are moving on to something else. And I think that's the other resistance that is happening, is that we don't want to. We want to stay in the old, right? We don't want to let go of what we know. And that is probably not going to be the case. We have to move on, but we still get to be resilient in that moving on, and we still get to find ways of resistance, of survival, of rejecting the status quo. Just because everyone around you is hardening and turning against each other doesn't mean that you have to do that. Doesn't mean that you have to participate in those types of behaviors. If you're a truly loving person, a truly giving person, you don't get to turn your heart off just because the world is turning hard. I'm not saying don't have discernment. I'm not saying don't see a duck and then try to say it's a cat. I'm saying don't react, right? Don't react. Reaction, it usually doesn't lead to an advanced way of experiencing yourself, right? And that's what yoga helps with. Yoga is very good for giving you the space to sit with things and to allow things to reveal themselves so you can make a decision. Reacting and making a decision are not the same thing. Reacting is seeing something and then action, an action to that thing. Making a decision is seeing something, gathering information, using your logic and intel, and then making the best decision for you. And that's what yoga will help you do. So I hope y'all got something from this. I'm going to put up some yoga practices in the next week or so around what we're talking about around resistance, right? Because we got some work to do. We got some gathering to do. We got some growing to do. If you want to join my virtual classroom, the website link is in the top. On all the other, what do you call those, social media sites, same name, Zohar Means Light. This is the only place where I do long form conversations and things, though. I try to do them on Instagram sometimes, but it gets lost over there. Yeah. If y'all have any questions about resistance or yoga, what would this say? Thank you, Silas. Then I'm going to hop off here because I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today and allowing me to share my thoughts. And if you haven't already, go and try some of the yoga practices on my main page. I have lots of yoga practices there for anyone who's interested in learning yoga. Okay? All right, guys. I'm going to see y'all next time. Peace.